So the Miami Dolphins have some breaking news. Josh Boyer fired as defensive coordinator, as well as a few other coaches, outside linebackers coach Ty McKenzie, safety coach Steve Gregory have been cut. Those other two assistants, as well as Boyer, were remnants from the Brian Flores era. So almost all the guys that were associated on the coaching staff are gone, if not all of them. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but before Brian Flores era, everybody that has been associated is slowly being weeded out of the organization. And it was definitely the right move for Josh Boyer, who is obviously the main name there that stands out the most. Josh Boyer, we weren't really sure how much credit he deserved coming into this season. Obviously, the defense was incredible under Brian Flores. At times, it was looking like one of the best defenses in the league, statistically top 10 defense, multiple seasons under Brian Flores that we saw. And then this year, there were injuries. I don't want to put it all on Josh Boyer. At first, I was reluctant to blame Josh Boyer for what the defense was looking like. You know, losing Brandon Jones, not playing the entire season, losing Emmanuel Ogbah, Nick Needham, Brandon Jones, Trill Williams, who was expected to play, is really harsh to put that all on one guy. So it did take me a while to get on the bandwagon to blame Josh Boyer for all the deficiencies we saw on the field for the Miami Dolphins defense. That was the one strong suit that we knew we could count on week in, week out, coming out of last year, where it was the offense that struggled. We couldn't put up points. We probably would have made the playoffs if we just had a little bit better of an offense. But the defense held through, and they helped us get to those back-to-back winning seasons. And now, flip it completely on its head. Mike McDaniel comes in, brings in Teron Armstead, Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson, brings in a whole host of guys, Raheem Mostert, and really revolutionizes the offense. And I love to see what he's done with it. A lot of Dolphins fans were calling for his job after the Bills game. I'm like, give me a break. 2 times in a row going up to Buffalo, you could argue that he outcoached Sean McDermott, who is one of the premier coaches in this league. Mike McDaniel, 39 years old in his first year, calling plays, first year head coach, arguably outcoached one of the best coaches in the entire league twice in his territory. I don't want to hear about Mike McDaniel. I'll get to Mike McDaniel later. Not on the YouTube video you guys watching this. A few videos down the line, a few days from now, probably. But Josh Boyer led the Dolphins this year to a bottom 10 defense. We had a lot of pressures on the quarterback, and they just weren't finishing. And we should have went out and got more secondary help, because Keon Crossan being on Stephon Diggs is a travesty. Keon Crossan being on Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, Keon Crossan being on Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. That is, I wanted to leave him in San Francisco. I wanted to leave him pretty much every stop along the way that we played, being Keon Crossan. And again, it does suck for Boyer that he didn't have his full onslaught of options. Who does, though? Greg Roman got the axe today. Greg Roman has been calling a pitiful offense for the Baltimore Ravens. And it's a very predictable offense for the Baltimore Ravens. Rightfully so. He was fired. It's a cruel league. You got to perform. It's your job to perform with who you're given, or somebody else will. And that's ultimately what Josh Boyer has seen here. Doesn't matter that he's lost all those guys. That's the right way to word this. How often we played zone defense when we have 0 linebackers on the team that I trust in coverage. We are having Jalen Phillips drop back into coverage. He was our best edge rusher this year. I believe only 5 edge rushers had more pressures on the quarterback than Jalen Phillips did all year long. And we're dropping him back into zone coverage? Honestly, I'd rather have Christian Wilkins drop back into zone coverage. At least we saw him get an interception against the Rams into his first season. At least we saw he has the ability to do that. The extent that he played Eric Rowe, there's just some things that were inexcusable. And you see the outside linebackers coach go too. Again, the linebacking core was one of the weakest on the team. Even though Jerome Baker was a captain last year, I think he led the team in tackles this year. Landon Roberts, none of them figured out how to guard anybody. All they would do is just, if they're in zone coverage, they're playing Tampa 2, they would just drop back to a spot, and that's it. There was no swiveling around, looking around the field, observing where everybody else is. There was none of that. Safeties coach gone too. Again, you lose your one of your starting safeties. You lose Brandon Jones. You have to play Eric Rowe. Who's Eric? Oh, Eric Reed. You have to play Eric Rowe as much as we did. Obviously not ideal. It's a results league. And as I previously mentioned, now it pretty much has drawn an end to everybody that was a part of the Brian Flores era. Again, I probably should have looked up before going into this. I feel like I've said that a lot recently, whether there are still anybody who's been still lingering around. But it would make sense. Those guys have the shortest leash. The Dolphins, it's just completely inexcusable to go from one of the best defenses in the league to one of the worst defenses in the league. And there was still a core group of guys that was there the entire season. Xavier Howard, Javon Holland. Xavier Howard missed a game or two. Yeah, I understand that. Christian Wilkins, Zach Zeeler, Jalen Phillips. You bring in the deterioration of, oh gosh, what's his name? Ingram over the season. Melvin Ingram. The deterioration of him throughout the season is shocking. How he was the player of the month in the month of September, defensive player of the month in the month of September, and was anonymous the rest of the season. Where he drifted to, again, just inexcusable. So Brian Flores, geez, he's already been given the axe. Josh Boyer, the defensive coordinator under Brian Flores. Was Brian Flores given credit, or was Josh Boyer given the credit? Should they get the credit? We found out this year that, oh yeah, it was Brian Flores. Brian Flores is a pretty good coach. Josh Boyer gets the axe. Miami Dolphins are now looking for a new defensive coordinator.